Module number 4, the fascination trigger. Key lesson: don't try to get him to love you. Fascinate him instead. Believe it or not, all men are wired to fall in love with you. Deserted together on an island with few other distractions, everything that's feminine about you would call to him. It would only be a matter of time until your feminine qualities triggered his love instincts. Deeply wired in his brain are all the instincts needed to make him crave your body, your presence, your gaze, and your friendship. Man is not meant to be alone. If this is true, why is he so hard to pin down? Why do his interests seem to scatter in so many directions? It comes down to the many distractions in his life. In this modern world, his primary drives can be met in many ways. Please recognize this truth. Only the things that fascinate him will capture his attention long enough to secure his deep investment. Humans are fascinated not only by things they crave, but also by things that disgust or cause fear. For example, we can simultaneously feel fascination and horror towards stories we see in the news, or an accident on the side of the road. Some talk shows capitalize on our fascination with the unfolding drama of obnoxious people. We can barely stand to watch such shows, yet we find it hard to flip the channel to something else. Of course, we are also fascinated by things we desire. We are fascinated by strikingly attractive celebrities. We are fascinated by the methods someone used to attain unusual wealth. We are fascinated by the dessert tray displaying its tantalizing array of mouth-watering delights. The things that fascinate us can be delightful or disgusting. So how is this information useful to us? Once again, the answer comes back to his most basic drives. All of the things that fascinate him can activate his drive to do, be, or accomplish. A man with a phobia of spiders experiences an instant and powerful drive to stamp the living smithereens out of that creature as it scampers across his living room floor. We are fascinated by things that are highly relevant to our basic needs and drives. Avoiding a spider bite fits that category, so a spider in our personal space grabs our attention. The private island signal. Let's apply this fascination principle directly to your efforts at capturing a man's undying love and devotion. You must align yourself with his basic drives, the things that he can't help but be fascinated with. Accomplish that and you will be calling to his instincts 24/7, pulling him toward you with an irresistible force. Like the famous sirens from Greek mythology, this signal is like a beautiful song, something irresistible he will want to go toward. And you send that signal by aligning yourself with his sense of purpose. Don't worry, in part 2 of this course I'll give you specific examples for doing so. For now, just absorb the big idea. Let me saturate your mind with concepts that will help you see the pattern of the hero instinct as it unfolds all around you. So long as you sustain his attention long enough over time, your natural feminine qualities will trigger his love instincts. It's as if you've created your own artificial deserted island effect. And this signals his fascination trigger. Flipping it to the on position, he becomes fascinated with you. Social psychologists call this propinquity. The term propinquity simply refers to the chances of two people having opportunities to interact on a frequent basis. The greater the propinquity to share with any man, the more likely it is that the two of you will eventually end up together. Propinquity has been proven to be the most powerful factor influencing who marries whom. With a variable this powerful, it's worth understanding what makes it work. Propinquity works for the very reason I illustrated above when discussing what would undoubtedly unfold between a man and a woman on a deserted island. If you reduce the competing demands on his attention, you will amplify the way your feminine qualities call out to his mind, body, and emotions. If you have a lot of propinquity, frequent interactions, with a given man, you are the distraction. In this scenario, statistics are working in your favor. Fortunately, you can do better than rely on statistics. You can fascinate. Do you remember how to do it? If you've been paying close attention while reading, you might already have the answer. Are you ready? Here it is. You can fascinate your man by stepping into the already existing stream of his basic drives. Things that are relevant to his basic drives are what get his attention. Don't let yourself become irrelevant to his drives. Specifically, you must become the one person in his life connected to his drive to feel that he has a purpose and that he has the power to succeed in that purpose. This statement summarizes an important idea in a simplified form, so please read it again to help it sink in. Now let's break down this statement. Let's start with the word purpose. His basic instincts cause him to seek out a meaningful purpose. Your job is to become a part of that purpose. Consider this. Energy is at the root of all human motivation. Think about what energizes you. More often than not, it's the same thing that energizes a 6-year-old boy on Christmas Eve. He's energized by what's coming next. Specifically, he's energized by the belief that there is potential pleasure coming his way when he opens presents on Christmas morning. He's too excited to sleep. That's because mental energy comes from the expectation of a reward. The opposite is true as well. We lose energy, become depressed when we do not expect to enjoy what's coming next. This phenomenon is evident in the research findings of psychologists who measure happiness. When psychologists ask people to track how happy and energized they feel, a clear trend emerges in the data. Happiness peaks on Friday afternoons when the majority of people are anticipating a weekend. The same graph shows plummeting happiness on Sunday evening in anticipation of a full work week ahead. Something interesting is hidden within this happiness research. It's not when the weekend arrives that happiness reaches its peak. Rather, it's while people are still at work on a Friday afternoon. And on Sunday, feeling blue takes over while the freedom of the weekend is still in full swing. What does that tell us? It tells us that human beings are anticipation machines. Our energy and happiness go up when we anticipate pleasure. The effect is extra strong when we expect pleasure in the very near future. Here's why. The human mind is constantly building mental representations of the future. Our belief about what's coming next is what determines how happy we feel. When someone becomes clinically depressed, they can lose interest in life. At the extremes of clinical depression, a person may stay in bed all day. Obviously, this does not make them feel better. And if you ask them why they do it, they will tell you plainly that they simply lack the motivation, energy, or drive to get up and face the day. Why does that happen? Why do depressed people lose energy and motivation? It's because depression gradually changes a person's expectation about the future. It's usually a very negative event like a sudden loss that triggers sadness. Suddenly, the future looks bleak. Energy and happiness drop. It could be a small loss, like the loss of self-esteem when you overhear someone making a negative remark about you at work. Or it could be a big loss, like the death of someone with whom you had anticipated many years of shared joy and companionship. Either way, your mind suddenly perceives a future devoid of reward. This saps your energy. Who wants to get to a future that contains no joy? Your brain literally begins to turn off the chemical processes that drive feelings of excitement, energy, and motivation. When this process goes on long enough, depression takes on a life of its own. Even once you have emotionally adjusted to a loss, depression causes a distortion of your thoughts so that everything in the future seems like it will be bleak and depressing. Your current feelings color your anticipation of what's coming next. In this way, energy disappears, motivation disappears, the desire to get up and do anything or accomplish anything disappears. What's the opposite of that? What is the opposite of feeling depressed? To answer this question, all you have to do is think back to the times when you were most energized. Feeling elated goes along with feeling energized. We feel happy when we anticipate pleasure. Our brain is designed to release energy whenever we perceive a reward that we can go after and achieve. In other words, we are energized when we clearly see a purpose for taking action. Do you know the greatest motivator of all time for mankind? It's a driving sense of purpose that gives our life meaning. Left behind. When a woman dies, her husband is 10 times more likely to commit suicide compared to a woman when her husband dies. Men send out fewer signals to request emotional support. Men are far more likely to rely exclusively on their spouse for their sense of meaning and interpersonal intimacy. His feeling of being connected and understood practically disappears when his spouse dies. That explains why men are so much more likely to commit suicide after the death of their partner. That's how important you are to his sense of purpose. When it comes to sharing emotions, he doesn't have the social support of other friends nearly as much as you do as a woman. That's because men are discouraged from talking about needs, being vulnerable, and asking for help. Society teaches men that their value comes from enduring pain, displaying courage, and seeming tough or unaffected by hardship as they pursue whatever needs to get done. These are the very traits that cause many women to admire a man and fall in love with him. They are also the traits that make him extremely bad at being emotionally open and intimate. But if you can be that person who makes him feel valued for opening up, you can essentially be his world. You help him to have something he would not otherwise have, while simultaneously getting the close emotional intimacy you crave with him. Purpose makes us feel alive. A sense of purpose feels good. It gives us a sense of belonging. It gives a sense of meaning. And whether your purpose goes beyond your mortal life, as is the case for many deeply spiritual people, or simply toward the goal of addressing an immediate need for yourself or someone else, purpose reigns supreme. It is the #1 form of lasting reward that drives human energy. Having a sense of purpose is a reward in and of itself. It removes our existential crisis, the anxiety that comes from being unsure about why we exist. It gives us a feeling of certainty and well-being. Think of a military commander rallying his troops or tribe just before a charge into battle. Classic movie scenes demonstrating this effect include Braveheart and Gladiator, movies men love. These movies do a fantastic job of showing the way even the fear of death loses its power when men have a sudden sense of certainty that comes from seeing a clear purpose. They channel their mental and physical energy toward achieving that purpose, and it feels glorious. So much so that we make movies about it. But the need for purpose is also woven into our daily lives. Show me someone who is depressed, and I will show you a person who has, at least temporarily, lost their sense of control over things that used to be among their main purposes in life. It could be a mother who saw her purpose as nurturing her child, only to lose that child. It could be a businessman whose business collapses, leaving him with a belief that he has too little money and too few years to rebuild. These sudden losses create a vacuum devoid of purpose. The purpose of life was removed by a cruel twist of fate, and with it their drive, motivation, and energy. Happiness comes in waves. Some of the waves are small, while others are more like enormous swells that carry us through long periods of our lives. Each wave of happiness comes from our anticipation of experiences we look forward to enjoying in the future. Have you ever had a moment when things were going badly, but then you made a decision to completely change course? Changing course could mean giving up entirely on something that wasn't working, or it could mean a decision to refocus on a principle for success that you had forgotten about for a few months or years. If you've had this experience, you might remember the sudden feeling of relief when you made the decision to abandon something that wasn't working and adopt a new strategy. Why did it feel good? After all, you were basically admitting to yourself that you were failing or that you were wasting your time with the wrong approach. Why does it feel good to realize you've been wasting your time? It doesn't. What felt good was a sudden change in the model your brain was building about the future. Your vision of the future got a sudden update that seemed more hopeful. In an instant, your happiness surges. Your mental hologram in which you envisioned the future suddenly changed. You no longer saw yourself endlessly beating your head against a wall that would not budge. You saw a path where you felt you could win. Suddenly, energy is released. Your mind moves you toward action. You feel happy. All that because the human mind is an anticipation machine. Your energy is linked to your own judgment of whether or not your current strategies are likely to yield rewards if you stick with them. Here's the point. When you feel fully aligned with your purpose, energy and happiness are released. You experience a sudden improvement in your quality of life. Now let's discuss how that affects a man in the context of his relationship with you. The connection between love and purpose. The end result we're going for is lasting love, but you can't make someone love you. You have no direct control over whether or not he has feelings of love for you. That's why we have to work backward to discover the things you can control that will stack the odds in your favor. So that brings us back to the fascination trigger. We are fascinated by things that have the potential to give us either pain or pleasure. The things that grab his attention are the things that have the potential to make a big impact on his pain or pleasure. Remember, his mind is always generating an automatic model for what the future will look like. The part of his mind that engages in that constant forecasting process is highly tuned in to anything that threatens of possible pain or tantalizes with the promise of potential pleasure. That's fascination in a nutshell. We are fascinated by things that can make us feel good and things that can make us feel bad. Fascination is the most powerful tool you have to grab his interest and attention. Yet it is the most overlooked aspect of human psychology when it comes to romantic relationships. For that reason, I need to make sure you really understand this concept thoroughly before we move on. Let's look at an example. There's a guy you've had your eye on at work. You glance out the window and see him walking toward your office building in the parking lot. He's walking at a slow pace, conversing with a woman you don't recognize. Suddenly, she's fascinating. You step closer to the window, trying to get a better look at her face. Why does she fascinate you? She fascinates you because she obviously has the attention of the guy you're interested in. There's a possibility she is competition. With a closer look, you might realize she's a sales representative from a partner company, not a girlfriend or coworker competing for his attention. Either way, the nature of his relationship with her is relevant, and so it is something that matters to you. Here's the point. Fascination determines the focus of our attention at any given moment in time. Let's review our main points. Number 1. The things that fascinate us most are the things which are relevant to the purpose we have adopted for our life. Number 2. Become part of his purpose and you will fascinate him. And what's more important is you will continue to fascinate him over the long term. Number 3. His hero instinct craves a purpose, a goal, a mission, a person who needs him. Become a part of his purpose by triggering his hero instinct. The question is, what drives the man you love? What drives will trigger the fascination of your love interest? Let me break it down for you as a quick review. The deserted island signal formula. Number 1. Propinquity puts the odds in favor by increasing the opportunities for him to fall in love with you. Number 2. Propinquity will only happen if you do a good job of capturing and holding his attention. Number 3. And you can learn that by using the principles of fascination you are learning in this relationship mastery course. Number 4. Tap into the things he is already fascinated with, like being someone's hero, because those things impact his sense of meaning and his drive to escape pain and pursue pleasure. Number 5. What can you influence that touches all of those things, meaning, pain, and pleasure? His sense of purpose. Make yourself a part of his sense of purpose. At this point, you may be wondering how to become a part of his purpose. Don't worry. Later in this course, I'll show you one big idea that will change everything for you. Something I call the momentum method. It's an idea that shows you how to invite him into a shared purpose, one that is great for your relationship, great for triggering his hero instinct, and great for you. But for now, we just need one more piece of this fascination equation to see how it all fits together. It's time to talk about the things that hold a man back. What stops him from automatically making you the purpose of his life?